It's Friday, so it's time for our Agile, Not So Agile episode of the Daily Stand Up Podcast. And today I wanted to talk to you about the bench in a square. In the heart of a bustling city, there was a small public square with an old wooden bench. The bench, worn smooth from years of use, sat under the shade of a towering oak tree. Every day, people from all walks of life passed by. Students with their books, business people with their briefcases, and street performers entertaining the crowds. But for one man, the bench was more than a place to rest. It was where he challenged everything he thought he knew about people. Marcus was a retired teacher, a man of strong opinions and quiet routines. Every afternoon, he would sit on a bench with a book in hand, observing the world around him, people watching, if you will. Marcus prided himself in being a good judge of character. In his mind, he could read people like an open book, the way they dressed, the way they walked, the expressions they wore. One chilly February day, as Marcus settled onto the bench, a young man approached. He wore a leather jacket, had tattoos snaking up his neck and arms. His hair was cropped short, and a small scar cut underneath his eyebrow. Marcus immediately tensed, clutching his book a little tighter. Probably trouble, he thought, and glanced away. To his surprise, the young man didn't just pass by. Instead, he sat down at the far end of the bench and pulled out a sketchbook and a pencil. For the next half hour, he drew quietly, occasionally glancing up at Square. Marcus couldn't help but steal glances at his sketchbook. He was curious but wary, his assumptions clouding his judgment. Finally, the young man noticed Marcus watching. "Want to see?" he asked. Holding out the sketchbook, his voice was calm, almost kind. Caught off guard, Marcus hesitated before nodding. The young man handed over the sketchbook, and Marcus flipped through its pages. His breath caught as he took in the drawings. Beautiful, intricate portraits of people in the square. Each face was captured with stunning detail and emotion. There was an elderly woman who sold flowers on a corner, her weathered face lined with stories. The street performer juggling oranges, his eyes alight with joy. Even Marcus himself reading his book with a thoughtful frown. "You drew this?" Marcus asked, his voice softer now. The young man nodded. "People are my favorite thing to draw. Everyone has a story, you know." Marcus felt a pang of guilt. He had been so quick to judge this young man, to dismiss him based on his appearance. Yet here he was, someone who saw beauty and depth in every person he encountered. As the days turned into weeks, Marcus and the young man, whose name he learned was Julian, became unlikely friends. They met at the bench almost every afternoon, sharing stories about their lives. Julian spoke about how art had helped him overcome a troubled past, and how every tattoo on his body represented a lesson he had learned in life. Marcus, in turn, shared his experiences as a teacher, the struggles with the loneliness after retirement, and his growing realization of how much he still had to learn. One day, Marcus asked Julian why he chose the bench to sketch. Julian smiled. "Because it's a place where people slow down. When they sit here, they're not rushing. They're just themselves." The simple answer stayed with Marcus. The bench had become more than a place to rest. It was a reminder to pause, to see people for who they really are, and not for who you assume they might be. By the end of February, the snow began to melt and the square buzzed with energy of early spring. Marcus looked at the world with new eyes, no longer rushing to judgment, but instead looking to the story behind each face he made contact with. The bench remained in the square, a quiet place with the world around it. For Marcus, it was a symbol of transformation, a place where he had learned that the greatest lessons often come when we let go of our biases and take the time to see each other as we truly are. In this world today, whether it's political bias, social bias, whatever bias you're facing, the media wants to make us biased. People want to make us biased. Religions want to make us biased. Everyone wants to put us in a box and say what we can and can't do. I believe it's high time that we eliminate some of those biases and try to find a beauty in each person. I'm going to share a message that I heard firsthand from Sir Richard Branson. He said, quote, "The thing that makes him, Sir Richard Branson, is that he takes a moment when he meets a new person to try to define one attribute about them that he admires, and then he emulates that attribute until he meets the next new person." He said that makes him a more confident person that people want to spend time with and be around. I couldn't agree more. I think that it's time for us to stop judging people based on who they love, how they look, who they worship, who they voted for. We need to look past all that. We need to get to the point where it's not based on the color of their skin or how tall or short they are or how much weight they've gained or lost. We need to look at each individual and look at their qualities and their character. We need to look for the things that make them the better people. And it's time for us to become a bigger person and stop making judgments. Stop having bias. I can tell you right now that when we start looking at people as individuals of great worth and value, that's when the world's going to be a better place. That's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And I look forward to you having an amazing weekend. And I look forward to catching up with you again on Monday. Until then, I encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.